It's the Acting Income Podcast with Ben Hauck, Episode 8, How to Coach Running to Complement Your Acting and Modeling Career, with Elizabeth Ann Corkum.
It's the Acting Income Podcast with Ben Hauck. Turn your passion into income, Ben will show you how. With all the resources that you need to make it as an actor in an expensive city. To stay balanced and make money, you really can't go wrong with actingincome.com.
Welcome to the Acting Income Podcast. I'm Ben Hauck, and on this podcast, we talk about anything and everything that helps you earn an income as an actor. Thank you for listening into this episode. This is episode 8, titled How to Coach Running to Complement Your Acting and Modeling Career, with Elizabeth Ann Corkum. Pull up the show notes right now at actingincome.com/episode 8. Now, before we dive in, I want to plug today's sponsor, the website Stand-In Central. Have you ever wanted to become a stand-in in TV or film? At Stand-In Central, we share what you might expect if you've just been hired as a stand-in on a film or TV show. With its gear reviews, weekly blog, and even its downloadable stand-in handbook, Stand-In Central offers a solid foundation in how to be an excellent and effective stand-in. Since 2010, Stand-In Central has been the go-to resource for standing in on film and television productions. To prepare yourself for your next stand-in job, check out standincentral.com. I just got completely wowed. My guest today is Elizabeth Ann Corkum, an actor, model, and dear friend who is also a running coach known as Coach Corky. Just before recording this intro, I punched into Google Running Coaches NYC, and she's listed third. The other two listings are two coaching directories, so I guess she's the first running coach listed for NYC. I got to train with Elizabeth in the days when she was just taking an interest in running. She has since grown to become, obviously, one of the most popular running coaches in New York City, with quite a number of impressive running accomplishments under her belt. She's also a model and an actor, and while coaching running has taken a priority in her life, her business pursuit is flexible enough that she can fit in go-sees, auditions, and even book the occasional commercial. Granted, she's logging over 70 miles a week on her legs sometimes, so coaching running is not for everyone. But how she manages her business will be of interest to you as you seek out ways to balance acting and coaching something you love. Here's Elizabeth's bio. Elizabeth Ann Corkum, aka Coach Corky, is one of New York City's top running coaches, personal trainers, and nutritionists. Originally from Philadelphia, Elizabeth moved to NYC to pursue an acting modeling career in 2009. A proud member of Actors Equity Association and SAG-AFTRA, Elizabeth now makes most of her income as the owner of Coach Corky Runs, LLC. Now, stretch your legs. Here's my interview with Elizabeth Ann Corkum. Elizabeth Ann Corkum, welcome to the Acting Income Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
You also go by the name Coach Corky, and you're a running coach.
I am a running coach, and people do call me Coach Corky.
And you're also an actor and a model, and you've segued your talents into becoming a running coach. Could you tell me a little bit about your journey from working as an actor and a model to working as a running coach?
Absolutely. As an actor, running was a hobby. It was my sanity, honestly, and it was my time to kind of clear my head. As actors know, it's very time consuming and there's very little we can control. And my running was my sanity, cheaper than therapy, as they say. And somehow in its very slow progression, it kind of spiraled from hobby to a passion into, we'll call it an obsession. And, from there into coach. I mean, there were lots of steps along the way, including getting certified and learning a whole lot about running in general, not just what had happened to arbitrarily work for me and achieving my goals and what kept my body happy, but, beginning to look at runners in general, mostly because friends who were actors as well or models would start to ask me for advice. And I was like, I need to know something about this other than what I'm reading in Runner's World or on the internet or based on my own happenstance with what's worked or hasn't worked, if I'm going to start giving people advice on this thing. So that was kind of the progression. But I was not a high school athlete. I was not a college athlete. I never entered a race until my mid-20s. So it was a very late in life, as the acting world goes, new career.
Well, I can speak to your progression as a runner. I remember running with you in Central Park, and we did a loop around Central Park, I don't know how long ago. And at this time, we did an 8-minute miles around the park, and you were out of breath and exhausted. And I think I remember saying, you have 7:30s in you. I think you looked at me and rolled your eyes and thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
And then you moved on to the point that you were winning 5K races and you were beating me in races. And it was just, you had such natural talent from what I could tell. I just want to speak to that because I'm so impressed by what you've accomplished as a runner. And it's so cool to see that you've progressed into becoming a running coach.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I didn't see it in myself in the beginning, let me tell you. I think when we ran those 8s together, my goal was to kind of run 8s to qualify for Boston at the time.
8-minute miles.
Right. And after one lap of Central Park, I was like, wow, I have my work cut out for me. I'm up to the challenge. I'm up to the task. Let's do it. But this is going to take some serious focus and really dedication.
Right. Now, I was just out in Central Park this morning. I biked a few loops around the park. It was 6:30 this morning when I started. I saw so many runners in the park. And when I've run Central Park in the past, at say 6:30 in the morning, there were a few. Have you seen a demand out there for running coaches with the presumed explosion of running?
Yes, absolutely. I think that you're right. I mean, it's 6:30 in the morning. I mean, it's a beautiful morning. It's a beautiful morning. We've had a rough winter here in New York City.
Right. Today it's sunny out and I think 66 at that time.
And people want to beat the heat because all of a sudden it's going to be 80 later. But yes, I think the population of runners, it's taken off. I think that the amount of spots in the New York City Marathon, I think, is evidence enough of just how popular this sport has become. And you have a lot of people, especially in New York City, where it's a hobby, it's something they like. Maybe it is their stress relief or their sanity or their therapy. But they're also, the longer you do this sport, I think the more you realize the more guidance you might need, because at some point we all end up getting injured or deal with burnout or deal with plateauing in our abilities. And how do you navigate those waters if you want to make running a lifelong hobby or event? So I think that there is definitely more of a demand for running coaches in New York City. Personally, I've been asked to do work I have to keep turning down because just there's not enough of me to go around right now.
Meaning people try to recruit your coaching talents and you just have to say no because you're already focused on some other runners, or what is that balance?
This is the first year of being a running coach where I have now been having to turn down groups that I've worked with in the past on a consistent. It's been consistent. I've had to turn down groups that I've worked with in the past. There's not enough time in the day. There's not enough being the day. And I'm very passionate about making sure that the runners who I do have on my roster get the time and the attention that they need and that they want and that they're paying for. And I think that I owe it to them and I owe it to the reputation of my business not to spread myself out too thin. And also too, that if you're training for a marathon, you want a coach or a program or a support system that you believe in 110%, because any doubt on that starting line that creeps in will do you in. Running really is so mental. So yeah, though it's been the last couple of years I've had to turn down a couple things, but this year it's definitely become more no's than yeses as far as joining other coaches, other programs, other groups.
What kind of qualifications do you have that attract people to you as a running coach?
Qualifications. I am RRCA certified, which is the Road Running Club of America, that they specialize mostly in mid and long distance running. Their training program really focuses on the marathon, half marathon, that kind of thing. I'm also a certified personal trainer and a certified sports nutritionist. And I don't have any desire to work in a corporate gym. I never have. But what I thought was really helpful and necessary was having that information, that knowledge, because I think it helps me as a runner and it helps my clients too, where I've been able to create weight training programs and nutrition programs for them to help tailor their needs as a runner and their imbalances or complications. And then this weekend, I'm going to get my USATF track and field certification, the level 1.
What does adding certifications mean for you as a running coach?
I think it's just, knowledge is power. I'm a believer in always learning, that none of us know everything. And the sport of running is always changing, as is our understanding of our bodies and how they work. 1 year static stretching is okay. The next year, nope, it's totally out, and it's dynamic stretching, things like that. I think it's important to stay on top of the sport and stay on top of what's popular and why. Is it a fad? Is it something that people are really onto? And certifications force you to go and sit in classes for hours and hours and pass an exam. It's one more credential, honestly. It's one more credibility. It's one more thing to add to my website of information I learn and I bring to the table as a coach.
Well, another credential you have as a running coach is you're also still an active runner. Just recently, you completed the Boston Marathon. Last weekend, you did the Broad Street Run in Philadelphia. What are some of the accomplishments you've achieved so far as a runner, and what do you look to accomplish in the future as a runner yourself?
Yeah, I don't know if I should make my goals public because I feel like if you put them out in the air, it's kind of scary.
I actually hear you. No worries about that. No need to publish that. But what have you accomplished so far?
So far, I have accomplished my fastest marathon is a 3:05, which I'm really proud of, mostly because I didn't think I had it in me that year.
And for those who don't know running too much, that's 3 hours and 5 minutes to complete 26.2 miles in a race.
Yes. And my half marathon is a 1 hour and 28 minutes. My 10 miler is 65 minutes. And my 5K is in 1841. So those are the numbers. I mean, I think some runners are really about the numbers and what that equates as far as athletic ability. Some of those races have stood out as my favorite races, as moments or achievements that really kind of just, are amazing pieces of my history, my past. There are also other races that, were a current PR at the time or were a momentous race for other reasons for me. I mean, I think my first marathon for sure was still like one of the best days of my life when I achieved my goal of qualifying for Boston, my first marathon, and crushed it by 7.5 minutes. And I had so much fun the entire time. I know I was tired, but I was never in pain. I felt, as great as you could in a marathon the entire time. And I crossed that finish line just a different human being than when I crossed the starting line. And it was just a magical journey. And there's something very special about that race in Philadelphia to me. And I've done some ultras since then.
An ultramarathon is?
An ultramarathon is anything over a marathon. The most popular distances begin around the 50K, which is 31 miles, and going up to or above 100-mile races or timed races, or some of them are staged races that will last 5 days, 7 days.
The most amount of miles you've run in a race is?
76 miles.
You masochist.
In under 24 hours, yes. Which is its own weird challenge. It's its own weird journey. And I'd say that an ultramarathon of that distance is a sport entirely different from, say, running a marathon. It's a totally different beast. But I have ultramarathoners on my roster who I coach.
Well, cool. I'd like to start segueing this conversation a little bit more into the acting and modeling aspect of your career, too. In segueing that, I mean, you're balancing coaching clients. It sounds like you coach groups. You also coach individuals. Is that correct?
Yes. Right now, my time is divided between my own individuals, a couple of different groups, either through running companies or my charity team for the New York City Marathon. I coach the City Harvest charity team for the New York City Marathon. And I also coach at Mile High Run Club, an indoor running studio.
Great. So you have to find time to also get in your own personal running. And then this is where it segues a little bit with the acting modeling stuff too, because eventually every once in a while you have an audition come up or a go-see come up. So I'm curious to see how many miles do you think you're putting in a week? And I'm guessing that changes over time, but how much can you do and how do you juggle your other professional responsibilities with?
Yeah. Right now, I've been really actually lucky where I've been able to kind of protect my legs a bit more. And I probably am running between 30 and 50 miles per week on average. Last year, 2014, I would say on average, it was probably closer to 70 or 80 miles per week.
And that was specifically because you were training for a certain goal. Is that correct?
Part of that at times was. Other times, it honestly was mostly just coaching miles.
Wow. So you're running as a coach and then you're adding your own personal miles too. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ah, you masochist.
Yeah, and that's a hard balance because, it's impossible to go out and have a fast run or have the expectations of a speed run when I've already run 8 miles with somebody at 5 a.m. that morning. Like, it doesn't matter what that pace is. If it's an easy pace for me, it's still 8 miles of wear and tear, and I've been up since 4 a.m. Like, it's not going to be the workout it would be if I were just strictly still an athlete, still a runner. That being said, I love my clients. I love helping them and seeing them improve and achieve their goals. But it's a balance. It's taken some time to navigate those waters and also, too, to figure out what goals for myself I can even realistically set.
Walk me through a day, and then walk me through a day when an audition comes up in that mix. Can you give me a sense of what that might be like? You can talk hypothetically. When are you getting up in the morning?
Today I got up at 5:45. Tomorrow I'll be up at 4:30.
And that's to train people or to train for yourself? Okay.
To train people. I'm not a morning runner. My body doesn't like to run in the morning. So if I'm getting up early, it's because somebody else is paying me to do so, honestly. So a day in the life. Like today, up 5:45, out to coach. I might go coach a class or a private client, sometimes back-to-backs. Mornings are usually busy. So, it's not uncommon that I'll be up and leaving around 4:30 in the morning to go coach a 5 a.m., a 6:15, a 7:30, something like that. Then I usually have some downtime in the late morning. That's when I come home. It's when I can work on emails, answer questions on training plans, get training plans kind of ready for the following week to send out to my clients because I send them out their coming week's training that Sunday. So the couple days leading up to it, I'm getting all those drafted and ready to go. And then I usually have most days some downtime until the afternoon. Late afternoon, early evening is often when private clients and or any groups would pick up. So I'm then usually out the door by 4:00, 3:00 sometimes to go coach, and I might not be home till 9 or 10 at night.
Now, are you running in the morning and running in the evening on these kinds of days?
Sometimes.
Sometimes you're not, though, as I guess. So sometimes you're more observing as a coach?
Sometimes, yep. Sometimes I'll be on a track observing, or I'll be in the studio, the treadmill studio, just teaching.
Oh, so it's not all outdoors.
No. This morning we were on the east river track, for example. So I jogged over the mile with them and jogged the mile back. But while they were doing work, I got to be the lazy coach and stand there. So, that, which helps me save my legs, honestly, because I'm a human being. I'm not a robot. And every year, unfortunately, we do get older, and I want to think about myself and my business and me as an athlete and my goals for decades into the future, not what can my knees handle for the next 2 years, but then they're done. So, so usually during the midday, I have time to do my own training, work on training plans, answer emails, chit chat. There's always possibly new clients on the roster to be chit chatting back and forth with. And then too, if I can make it to some castings, that's usually when I can make it to go-sees or castings. Late morning, early afternoon is usually optimal for me.
I see. So as a running coach, your work is concentrated in the morning and in the evening, which leaves the afternoon pretty flexible for going to a go-see or doing a casting or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, 2 weeks ago, for example, I was coaching all in the day till I think 2:00. And I got a last minute call from one of my managers asking if I could do a catalog photo shoot. It'd be 2 hours of my time from 3 to 5 p.m. in Midtown. And I was like, yeah, and it was a direct booking. I didn't have to go to a casting for it. So it was perfect. And I pretty much went straight. I went to coach in a face of makeup. Then went down to Midtown, shot for this catalog, which turns out it was a shirt. So you don't even see me. I mean, you see my chin and you see like my waist and it's everything in between. So it really didn't matter what was going on up here. I guess on the podcast, you won't see what I'm doing with this.
You said shirt and chin.
All right. So, it was for a shirt. It was for an athletic top. But I was able to squeeze in that 2-hour shoot without any problems, then had time to go home before going back out to coach later in the day. And I made an easy $1,200 within those 2 hours to book, to shoot one garment for a catalog, which was not usually how this business goes. But when it does go that way, it's pretty sweet.
Give me some sense of what kind of rates you charge when it comes to coaching as a running.
Sure. So when I'm out coaching one-on-one with my clients, I have different rates based on different times of day. Simply, I have peak rates and non-peak rates. So if I am coaching before 7 a.m. on a weekday, my rate is $150 an hour. If I'm coaching after 7 a.m., it's $100 an hour. And on weekends, if it's before 8 a.m., it's $175 an hour. But after 8 a.m., it's $100 an hour. That's my one-on-one time to be out with a runner, whether they are running, weight training, a combination of the two. That is for my in-person time. Then for somebody who would want a training program, I have a monthly rate of $150 a month, which offers them their personalized, totally individual training program that's goal-oriented and is built based on an assessment meeting I will do with them and a lot of information they will give me about who they are, their goals, their schedule, their injury history, so on and so forth, dietary needs, everything across the board. So those are pretty much my two, when they come to Coach Corky Runs, those are pretty much the two options. I have some runners who use only a training plan, and I have some runners who are not in New York City who just use me for a training plan. And I have other people who use me just for the one-on-one time and they don't want a plan. And I've got a bunch who there's overlap with.
And groups, do you charge differently for groups?
I actually this year am not currently doing any of my own groups. I do. Usually if I did, I would charge differently. Yes, it'd be a discounted rate. But I've just been too busy between bookings at Mile High where I can be coaching where I'm not running, which just frankly, it's more, I can coach more in a day and save my legs. And they're great. It's a fantastic place. It's fun and it's great for novice runners, people who are possibly new to running or don't know if they're a runner, up through extremely experienced individuals.
Do you sell also in packages too? I mean, do you sell like a 3-pack of running lessons or you just do one-off lessons or how do you manage that?
I haven't. It's really just been one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I haven't really had the need to offer packages, honestly. If I do groups, like I worked with Jackrabbit Sports and I worked with the folks at the Run Smart Project. So if I'm working with them with the group, then, somebody else is usually handling the payment structure and all that stuff, So I'm getting paid less usually than my one-on-one time, naturally, but that's organized and orchestrated by somebody else, not by myself.
How do you manage conflicts that come up, whether it be in your work life or when there's clients that suddenly have a conflict and they've booked you?
Good question. So with my clients, I have a cancellation policy. I always ask for 12 hours beforehand. Optimally, I really like 24 hours because, especially if you want a prime time of day, I might tell somebody it's already booked because it is already booked and then I lose it. And I think, most gyms, most fitness studios have cancellation policies that are similar. So that's how I handle that side of it. Obviously, there's sometimes extenuating circumstances or the weather can be a factor. Winter was tough. So we had to be a little bit more flexible with that.
I see. That's interesting. So sometimes you might cancel because of weather, or sometimes the client might cancel because of the weather?
Yeah. I mean, I've always kind of handled it that as long as I'm willing to be out there and whatever the weather is, and they've booked me and they're not going to look at the forecast and be proactive about it, then, I'm not their babysitter. I'm not the weatherman. I'm busy too. Probably with other clients, they can make the decision whether or not it's too hot, too cold, rainy, and they want to run in it or not. If I'm willing to be there, and then they choose to cancel because of the weather last minute, to me, it's on them. If I choose to cancel because of the weather, which is very rare, it has happened this past winter simply because it's 5 degrees and it's just, there have been warnings out about the risk for health.
Right.
Or thunderstorms. And sometimes we'll get thunder and lightning storms. Safety first, especially Central Park. There's a lot of water, a lot of trees. No workout is worth dying for. But other than that, I won't cancel. I think maybe once I end up having to last minute because of a stomach bug or something, but those things that you can't see coming on with some notice. As far as for myself, when something acting wise pops up last minute, I have some clients where I have been able to ask them to move something around if it's a commercial booking or something like that. I'm lucky in that a lot of my clients think it's really awesome that I'm on film sets. They get so excited. They want to know what they can see me in, what's the commercial for, or, oh, it's a photo shoot. Oh, you're famous. You're the face of whatever, which I tell them it's really not that big of a deal. But the fact that they're so supportive of it actually makes it easier on me to ask them to potentially reschedule something. I've been doing it less and less, though, because often now, if I only have one booking in a day, say, and it's that or the commercial, financially the commercial kind of weighs out.
The commercial wins?
As long as I can reschedule that client without, upsetting them or anything like that, then the commercial wins. Financially, an hour of coaching is $100. I show up on a commercial set and it's $350 to walk through that door. Mm-hmm. So if it comes down to dollars, the commercial wins hands down. However, as a business owner and as somebody who has created a business that she works very hard to have a good reputation for being reliable, punctual, organized, I pick and choose those battles, because when people sign up for a running coach and they put that in their calendar that they're going to have me there for their speed workout, we're building the entire week around that speed workout and maybe their long run. So bailing on them last minute, it's not ideal. It's not optimal.
Mm-hmm.
So I've, especially lately when I've been really, really busy, I'll turn down commercials, because if it's possibly rescheduling 4 clients or 2 clients and 2 classes, now you're talking maybe $400 a day to coach for 4 hours versus $350 to show up for a commercial, which could turn into more, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I've become very serious about my business and the reputation of it, and that when you want to demand competitive rates and you want to demand a certain type of client, I want to work with people who are excited to run and are easy to work with and aren't going to flake on me or the program. I mean, we're all human, but I want to work with people I want to work with. You also need to rise to the challenge. You need to be somebody people are excited to work with and to pay those rates for, and to get up in the morning to meet. So, especially the last minute commercial bookings, I've been saying no more than yes the last couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Have you found that the more you've committed to running, that it's improved your acting and modeling profession? Has running given you more acting and modeling opportunities? I mean, you were up for the cover of Runner's World.
Yes.
That came from being a pretty hard training runner, I would imagine, right? And also having the modeling background. Would you describe it as symbiotic, perhaps, the relationship between running and acting modeling?
Absolutely. I think that running has definitely steered my acting and modeling career in a very specific direction, I guess, is the best way to put it. I would not have been considered for the cover of Runner's World if I hadn't been a serious runner, for sure. And I know I'm on the short list at, say, thanks guys, at Background Inc. when they need somebody who's going to be a runner or somebody fitness related. I know I get called and I'm asked, like, are you still running? Are you injured? Are you whatever? Like, it's nice to know I am on the short list for New York City if they want some white all-American blondish girl to be running. It's nice to know that I've kind of carved that out. It's taken time, that now I'm like maybe that go-to person. And I'm happy to be that go-to person when they call. I also, though, to be fair, it's gotten in the way of acting, in that I rarely look at the Actors Equity page anymore for EPAs or ECCs. And I don't do background work at all on TV anymore. Simply, it doesn't make sense financially for me to do it and energy-wise. And I wasn't enjoying it, honestly. It wasn't... I like being on sets, but it became more of a chore than something I was excited for. And I don't want acting to ever be something that I resent or feel is like my day-to-day office job. I become very restless and just unhappy that way. I've been up for a couple of stand-in jobs that I didn't submit for, but I've gotten called about, that I have turned down in the last year. One of them wanted me in fall, and I was swamped with folks heading to New York City Marathon, and I just couldn't do it. I had to, take a step back and say, all right, Liz, are you the owner of Coach Corky Runs LLC, which is a one-woman show right now, even though I sometimes do have assistant coaches I will call on if I absolutely need to? Or are you going to go take an 8-week stand-in gig on this film and abandon all of that? And obviously... it would take an idiot to say, I'm going to abandon all these clients who are needing me in the next 8 weeks more than ever. So it's taken away from some of the acting stuff, but I don't miss a lot of what I was doing as an actor. There are definitely times where I miss the day-to-day or the last-minute spontaneity about being able to go hop into an audition or casting very last minute. But honestly, I also like knowing where my income's coming from. I like that I can create my own schedule. And I like that the work I put into something, there's now payoff for. And as an actor, no matter how prepared you are when you walk in an audition, no matter how great you look that day, how well rested you are, there's so many other variables you have absolutely no control over. And that just began really honestly driving me kind of nuts.
Hey, we're almost finished here. What would you recommend an actor in another part of the country do if he or she wanted to earn an income on the side as a running coach?
I would recommend that they get some certifications, and I recommend that they start off kind of the way I did, in that I was hired to assist programs out of different running stores and things like that in the beginning, to kind of get your feet wet and just see if that's a good fit. They say, that sometimes when you take on something you love and then make it your job, it all of a sudden becomes work. You don't love it the same way anymore. And I think for some of us, that's true. For me, for acting, that certainly became true. But that was also because I felt like I was kind of banging my head on a door. And just to see do they have the passion and the knowledge and the organization to become a running coach. I think there's certainly a demand for it. I also think just know your market. I'm asked all the time, what do I charge and how did I start and all this stuff? And I'll say, New York City is totally, completely unlike if I were my sister in Oklahoma City wanting to become a running coach, for example. I don't know what that market is, but I can promise you I couldn't charge there what I'm charging here. I also don't know what the demand is. New York City is full of runners. It's an active, happening place. There's a huge running community. Then again, if I were to move to Oklahoma City, maybe you could be the person to really harness and start the organization. I mean, New York City Roadrunners started from somebody's idea. It wasn't always there. There are lots of other organizations, charities, race directors. But I think just to go do some research, get some knowledge, get some learnedness, get some certifications, and strap yourself onto somebody who maybe is already a coach or somebody who's a better runner than you or somebody who's done it, and just learn from them and see if it is a good fit, because it's like teaching. Not everybody should be a teacher. I'm not an Olympian. I am not a world-class athlete. But for some reason, I'm a really good running coach. I know people who are world-class athletes. Do they have any business being a running coach or being an educator? Absolutely not.
Coach Corky, if someone is interested in working with you as a runner, especially in the New York City area, which I think is where you're concentrated,
yes,
how might they get in touch with you?
Good question. I mean, an easy way is a Google search.
What would they Google?
Coach Corky Runs.
Coach Corky Runs.
Or even if you search, running coaches in New York City, I'm one of the top ones that pop up. Or then go to my website directly, which is coachcorkyruns.com. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter.
You have a blog on coachcorkyruns.com, is that?
Yes.
I subscribe to it. It's really, really excellent. It provides lots of great tips and mindset for runners. I find it fascinating read every time I get it.
Oh, good. Thanks. I'm glad somebody...
you talk about the ups and the downs of it.
Yes.
I mean, you experience downs too as a runner. So it's really helpful to read that someone with so much running talent also has frustrations. And, you feel less alone. And I understand you also have an offer you can extend to the Acting Income Podcast audience.
Yes, for anybody finding Coach Corky Runs via the Acting Income Podcast with Ben Hauck, I will give you a $25 discount on the first month of training plan, or you can apply that towards the first one-on-one session. You can apply it towards my services one way or another. Let's just leave it at that.
Elizabeth Ann Corkum, a.k.a. Coach Corky, thank you so much for talking to me. Cheers.
Thank you.
Just a few hours after recording this interview with Elizabeth, I got a text from her. She wrote, "I'd say there is certainly a market for running coaches. Looks like I'm adding 4 new runners to my roster between this and next week. I'm going to be close to capping my roster for the year." So if you want to train with Coach Corky, she's in demand, so keep that in mind. But also keep in mind how you might be able to relate her approach to coaching to your own quest for income as an actor. Actors are continually seeking flexible work, and it helps if that work enriches you as a performer. Coaching running where you live may be an interesting option, especially if demand is high. Check it out. And that's the show. This episode was sponsored by the website Stand In Central. To learn about standing in and to download the Stand In Handbook, visit standincentral.com. The show notes for this episode are available at actingincome.com/episode 8, where you can leave a comment on this episode. You can also find Acting Income on Twitter and Facebook. Rate and review this podcast on iTunes by visiting actingincome.com/iTunes. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, check out actingincome.com/advertise. I'm Ben Hauck. Donobot. See you on the next episode. For more information, as always, check out actingincome.com.